Hello friends, welcome to fresh new episode of Techie Tuesdays. I'm your host S. Ravi Kumar. Techie Tuesdays is a weekly show where I answer your tech and career related queries. So if you like my answers, then please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends, family and colleagues. Now let's get started with today's questions. Today's first question is by Ajay. He's asking, what's new in Microsoft .NET 6? So before answering to Ajay's question, for those who don't know what is .NET 6, .NET 6 is the latest version and LTS or long-term support version of Microsoft's own .NET framework. .NET framework is a framework by Microsoft to build any kind of application, be it web, desktop or mobile applications using .NET and C#. Along with C#, .NET framework also supports other languages like VB.NET and F#. So now coming back to Ajay's question that what is new in .NET 6? For starter, .NET 6 is consolidation of all the .NET frameworks. Before .NET 6, the other frameworks which were cross-platform were .NET 5, then there was Mono runtime or Mono framework which was used to create Android and iOS mobile application, whereas with .NET 6, you can use .NET itself, like .NET 6 itself, to create Android and iOS applications. So .NET 6 is basically true consolidation of all the .NET frameworks, that is .NET framework on Windows, Mono runtime which is cross-platform which runs on Linux and Mac OS, and your .NET Core framework. So all the three framework, that is Windows .NET framework, .NET Core framework and Mono runtime or Mono framework, all these three are consolidated into one single framework, that is .NET 6. Apart from that, .NET 6 also support C#10 and F#6. So there are many features of C#10 which is supported by .NET 6. The primary language or the main language which is supported by .NET 6 or which was released along with .NET 6 is C#10. Along with that, .NET 6 also support new project template type, just like minimal API, which is basically a single file API application. So you have just program.cs, and using just program.cs you can create one web API application. Apart from that, even regular ASP.NET MVC and Blazor project frameworks project templates has also been updated according to .NET 6. .NET 6 has also came up with a new data type, or I think it's a C#10 feature, that is there is a new data type called date only and time only. So previous to that, if you want to store a date time field, you have to store in date time like data type. The data type was date time. So if you want to store date, you will have to use date time. If you want to store time, you will have to use date time again. But now with .NET 6 and C#10, you have separate data type for both of these, that if you want to store date, you will use date only. If you want to store time, you will use time only. And if you want to find out the difference between the two, by difference I mean like if you want to compare that which date is greater than other date or less than other, or those kind of arithmetic conversions if you want to do, you can use the time span data type which is already there since longer period of time in .NET. With .NET 6 framework, startup.cs file has been removed from your project templates. So all the new project templates have only program.cs, and all the things which were done in startup.cs has been included into program.cs itself. That is to support your minimal API framework. .NET 6 also have ARM support, which means that you can natively create Apple Silicon application, or you can build .NET 6 application natively on Apple Silicon Macs, that is M1 Macs. However, as I said earlier also, that servers are not Apple Silicon compatible. They are still on Intel x86 or Intel 64-bit processors. So they it won't be much beneficial to use it on Mac. But of course, it will help in developing mobile application using Mavi or even using Xamarin. Another biggest feature of .NET 6 is hot reload everywhere. Hot reload is a feature where you change the code or change the UI on runtime, and it is reflected back on the application itself. So hot reload is basically a debug only feature or development feature that while doing development, if you are running a web application, you can change into HTML code or C# code of that web application, and that will be automatically reflected on the web UI which you are running. This feature is available on all the project types of .NET 6 framework. So be it a web application, be it a desktop application, be it a Blazor application, be it a Mavi application, all the application types support hot reload now. So these were main new noticeable features in Microsoft .NET 6 framework. To know more about these features, you can go through the documentation of Microsoft .NET 6 framework by visiting docs.microsoft.com. Next question is by Hal Warfield. He's asking, is there a definitive comparison of AWS and Azure for small web developers, specifically the pros and cons of each? Hal, let me clarify you one thing, that both AWS and Azure doesn't target small web developers. Their main target is basically SMEs, that is small and medium enterprises or large enterprises. That is the reason you won't find any kind of definitive comparison between the services of two with respect to small developers, be it web developers or be it any kind of developer, because not only web development services or like web hosting services, AWS and Azure provide other plethora of services like IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service. Then there is your machine learning services. Then there is IoT services. Both AWS and Azure have services related to all these different fields, and to both all these services are mainly targeted towards enterprises, not towards small developers. Let me give you the example of very simple service, that is web hosting service as a PaaS or platform as a service. So if you want to host any web application, be it a ASP.NET application, be it a PHP application or any kind of web application, there is a PaaS service, that is platform as a service by Azure, that is called Azure App Service. So using Azure App Service, you can host any kind of web application. Similarly, in AWS, you have AWS Beanstalk, which is used to host any kind of web application. It even supports .NET applications. So people think that AWS is only for like anything except .NET. It is only for open source or Linux based applications, but no, AWS also supports .NET applications. So on AWS Beanstalk, you can deploy .NET based application, be it .NET 5 based application or be it containerized application or be it regular .NET framework based application. But the challenge here is that both of these services are pretty costly. The cheapest one is $25 per month. I'm talking about Azure App Service. So the cheapest Azure App Service is in $25 per month, which comes around 12 to 1300 Indian rupees per month. Whereas if you go on GoDaddy or Smart ASP or any other like shared hosting site, because App Service is also just like a shared hosting, but it is like totally controlled by Microsoft. Whereas if you go on other providers or other hosting providers like Smart ASP is there, Discounted ASP is there, GoDaddy is there. So even GoDaddy supports your .NET framework hosting. So those hosting solutions are cheaper. They comes down to around $2 to $3 per month. So as I said in the beginning itself, that both the AWS and Azure are not targeted towards small developers or indie developers. They are more targeted toward SME, that is small, medium enterprises and large enterprises. Next question is by Paul Lee. He's asking, is there a good WPF boilerplate or CMS anyone can recommend, like .NET Nuke in the old days or Kentico, but for WPF, paid or open source is both fine? Paul, the simple answer is no. There is no CMS for WPF. For boilerplate, of course, you can use the default template provided by Microsoft, which comes with Visual Studio installation. However, that doesn't work as a CMS. The main reason behind this is that CMS is or content management system. So the full form of CMS is content management system, and the prime purpose of CMS is to create websites to handle different kind of activities. The popular CMS are, as you have named, that is .NET Nuke. The .NET based CMS are .NET Nuke, Kentico, and even nowadays it is Octane is also there. So all of these CMSs are basically for creating websites. So that's the reason most of the people used web-based CMS like .NET Nuke. Then there is Orchid in .NET Framework. Orchid, like now it is converted to Core, so that is Orchid Core is there. WordPress is there. Drupal is there. All these are basically web-based CMS. The benefit of having a web-based CMS is that you can both host and publish a CMS on a single server. Like if you host a website, you can host the website on the direct like root domain, that is .com domain, and then you can host the CMS on a subdomain, that is like admin that particular domain, and your CMS will output the website in the like main domain. So that way you can directly run both of these things, and it is easier to handle it via the web interface rather than handling it on the desktop. That is the primary reason that you won't find any desktop based CMS systems. 95% of the CMS systems are web based. Next question is by Anish Narayan. He's asking, how important is it for web developers to learn data structure and algorithms? Anish, it primarily depends on what kind of web developer you are or what are the tasks you have in hands. The primary use of data structures is to manage data and the performance related stuff. When you are doing web development, all of these things are usually taken care by the framework builders. So if you are using .NET framework, all the performance related things are already taken care in the framework itself, and the builder of the framework or Microsoft or any other like the company which has built the framework or the architects of the framework, they basically give you best practices to follow in order to get best performance. And those things are already taken care related to framework dependent things. As a web developer, 90% of the time your tasks would be related to implement a particular feature or implement a particular functionality in the web applications, which using the features or facilities given by the underlying web framework which you are using. That thing basically needs you to learn about the framework in which you are developing the web application, not the data structures. That is the reason that personally I don't believe that it's important to learn data structures as a web developer. As a web developer, your focus should be to learn the framework, that is the underlying framework using which you are going to do web development. Next question is by Shashi Kumar. He's asking, what is the difference between the Microsoft and GitHub accounts? Shashi, Microsoft account or Microsoft ID is basically a single ID which you create to use all the Microsoft facilities or all the applications which are created by Microsoft. For example, Office 365, Azure DevOps, Visual Studio Dev Essentials. So all these features you can use using one single Microsoft ID or Microsoft account. Usually these accounts are Outlook accounts. So if you have an email with Outlook, let's say if you have an email called shashi@outlook.com, that account is by default a Microsoft account. However, you can convert any other email ID also to a Microsoft ID just by registering to any of these services by using that ID. So if you are buying a new Office 365 subscription and you use your Gmail account as a Microsoft ID or as a login account for that Office 365, you automatically convert that Gmail account to a Microsoft ID, and then you can use that Gmail account to access all the Microsoft services just by paying to them. So if you have created one Office 365 account, using that same Office 365 Gmail account, you can log in into Azure portal also and utilize the services of Azure, of course, by paying for it. In the same way, for using GitHub services like creating a repository or creating issues in the GitHub, you required a GitHub account which you can create by registering on github.com, and that account is basically called GitHub account. In 2018, Microsoft acquired GitHub, and after that they started merging GitHub with Microsoft account, because GitHub is also a now Microsoft service. So Microsoft is now also selling GitHub services. So that's why you can use your Microsoft account in GitHub also, or vice versa. So if you have a GitHub account created, you can merge both the GitHub account. If they are using same email ID, you can use the same GitHub account to log in into your Microsoft account credentials also. That is the reason you get confused that there is a difference between the two. So the only difference is that you can now use your GitHub account to log into other microservices like Microsoft services like Office 365 or Azure, which Microsoft started doing after they acquired GitHub. But usually the main purpose of GitHub account was to manage GitHub services, and apart from that, both this Microsoft account as well as GitHub account follows the your OAuth framework for maintaining their records. So using Microsoft account and GitHub account, you can also log into other services or other providers who support OAuth authentication. So you also have many services like there is one chatting services called Gitter. So in Gitter you can log in with your GitHub account, or you can log in with your GitLab account, because it has integration of OAuth Gitter in your GitHub with your GitHub. So both of these Microsoft account as well as GitHub accounts follow OAuth framework or open authentication framework for login, and you can even use these Microsoft or GitHub account authentication in your application also. So these were my answers to your tech and career related queries in this episode of Techie Tuesdays. If you want your questions to be answered in next episode of Techie Tuesdays, you can DM me your questions with hashtag Techie Tuesdays on any social media platform. All my social media handles are Techie Rathor. I hope you like my answers, and if you like my answers, then please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with your friends, family and colleagues. So until my next video, take care, bye bye.